patch notes are out. Maintenance is set to end at 11 p.m. tonight PST, which is 2 a.m. Wednesday morning EST. So that is when I will be live at around 2 a.m. to check out this new update. Now, what are we getting? Let's dive right in. So Carol's getting a brand new uniform. It looks very good. It looks like it just continues based on the buffs she was receiving recently. Her uniform effect gives her massive increased damage to villains and decreased damage received. So she keeps that, and it's 55-50 now, which stacks with a 40% damage reduction. That's just generic. So despite what she might look like as an ABX ABL queen only, she may have PvP value here. Her tier 3 skill is getting changed, so it's a brand new animation, which should be very good damage wise. Her leadership gets a small 5% buff. She keeps her chain hit. She keeps her all buff effect. So you can see all the other buffs she's going to get. You're going to multiply their effects by 1.2, and you're going to multiply their duration by 1.3. That's actually huge when you start to stack up all of these different effects. Now, as far as the effects on her skills go, it's massive. She's got silence, she's got burn, she's got paralysis. So right there, in just 2 skills, she takes care of all the ABX stuff. Just all the ABX stuff is gone with just 1 and 2. Then on 3, she has snare and fracture. And then she's just missing shock, which she has on her 5th skill. Oh, sorry, fracture. Oh, no, never mind, fracture. So in just 4 skills, she takes down all 6 requirements, which is insane. She keeps her iframe ignore, which is awesome. Her cooldowns are a little bit long. You can see 16 seconds, 16 seconds, 18 seconds. So she's going to have a pretty tight rotation, but what can you expect from a character that's so stacked? She has accumulation. She only has a 10% heal, but remember, the 10% heal gets multiplied by 1.2, so it's actually a 12% heal. And then it also gets its duration increased by 30%. So this might actually end up popping off for closer to 25 if it pops off twice, right? Because it'll be 12 and then 12 again. So yeah, she's looking very, very nice. I'm really glad they kept the iframe ignore. And I think with all of these buffs stacking, she might be a pretty dangerous hybrid character. We'll have to wait and see if she can survive, but as you'll see, they gave her more weapons for that. Nick Fury, on the other hand, is one of the more kind of disappointing uniforms. I think what people are going to be happy for is that he's getting an upgrade to tier 3, but I think a lot of people are going to rightfully skip this uniform, despite how cool it looks in terms of the icon and stuff like that. There's just not enough changes. You know, his uniform effect is very straightforward. It gives him damage reduction. That's great. His leadership just gets bumped up by, I think, 5 or 10%, and then pretty much everything is exactly the same. It's still super armor, all defense 30%. It's still immunity to incapacitation and 55% increased damage to villains for all hero allies. So they didn't really change anything about his kit as a support. And yeah, he could be a good standalone damage dealer. Don't get me wrong, right? He's got shock, paralysis, burn. He's got access to quite a few abilities. He's got invincibility. He's got a damage proc that you can pass and frenzy buff. And he's got even more buffs here. But in what reality are you going to use Nick Fury when you have Miles Morales, when you have Spider-Man, when you even have Ant-Man, for crying out loud, right? There's just not that much use for speed male heroes in general. So Nick Fury has even less value there, especially since he has to compete with some of the most insane level 80 tier 3s like Miles. Like, you know, he's just not going to do as much damage as Miles. There's no way. So I think they dropped the ball with Nick. They should have, you know, really cranked up the supports and made him a bit more interesting, but then again, maybe he would have been too overpowered. And then we come to the biggest disappointment of this update, Miss Marvel. I was really looking for the silver lining with this one. I hate to just report a bunch of bad news, but I think the devs completely screwed this one up. Keeping her as a speed type means she's going to now compete directly with Shadow Shell, Spider-Gwen, Gamora, Luna. The list goes on, right? And she can't compete with those characters because they can all go to level 80 and they can all go to tier 4. So their own, you know, their own sort of update schedule and sort of pattern has rendered a lot of these characters just useless from the get-go. If that weren't enough insult, if I, you know, when I talk about and I check the uniform changes, there's basically none. They basically took her 40% attack increase on her uniform and they bumped it up by 5%. Whoa. Still 50% all defense, still 30% damage reduction, still 15% chain hit. Oh, her skill damage was 40 and 30. Now it's 45 and 30. Whoa. These are small, minute changes you're not going to notice. You're barely going to perceive. Her passive is still the same. And then as far as her skills go, I was checking the percentages. I was maybe hoping, you know what, maybe the percentages are going to pop off and be way higher. They're not. The percentages are basically the same. Some of them are higher. Some of them are lower. She actually loses the invincibility on her 3rd skill, so you have to combo into the 4th skill. Otherwise, you will get guard broken. Now, I think they're hoping that Miss Marvel sells uniforms because Goose is in her kit, and it's kind of no coincidence that the worst uniform has the funniest skill because Goose appears. So there's that sort of, FOMO, but I think it's really disappointing that they screwed this one up. They really should have just changed her to combat, and that would have made all the difference, right? Like, it's such a crazy shift, but just to put it into perspective, just changing her to combat could make this uniform the most valuable uniform of the update. That's literally how stark the difference is. So she goes from useless to almost god tier, pretty much guaranteed to be god tier if they had just changed her hero type back to combat. And that's the other thing. It's not like we don't have a precedent for this, right? If we were just talking out of our asses, oh, just change her to combat when she's always been speed. No, she was originally combat. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. It's very disappointing. I think they are really trying to stretch these characters as thinly as possible, and they're probably looking at Miss Marvel and saying, you know what? She's going to get a second TV show. Like, she's going to get a second season. For the second season of her TV show, we can really hype it up, and we can do a tier 4 Miss Marvel, and we'll really bring her back. That it's just too late, man. It's just too late for that. You can't be saving all of your eggs for the basket way later. It's frustrating. Spectrum, on the other hand, looks really interesting. I think a lot of people are sleeping on how strong Spectrum could be. We'll have to wait and see. She gets and keep in mind here, this is her first uniform, right? She's never had a uniform before, so this is going to bump up her stats like crazy, right? She was almost good enough for PvP when she came out. So she's getting a flat 30% HP. Then she's getting super armor and 30% all defense. These are very nice PvP buffs here. Then her passives are getting enhanced. She gets 60% energy damage received decrease, right? She has a 100% chance to crit 50% over the cap. Then she gets just a frenzy buff forever. On top of the fact that she has a 100% chance to dodge physical attacks for 5 seconds every 7 seconds. That's pretty huge. I know that's in her kit originally, but I think this will matter more now than before. But we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see if she can tank. She gets burn, she gets paralysis, she gets fracture, she gets silence, she gets access to a lot of abilities. She has a 25% heal. She has a 50% penetration chance with a frenzy buff. She's got another buff here. She's got accumulation. She has a chance to increase her guaranteed crit rate by 30%. She has a lot of different buffs. So again, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, it's looking pretty nice. It's looking pretty nice. They yeah, I think they increased her HP, her heal by 5%. But yeah, I'm kind of liking Spectrum, especially when you combo that with her artifact and stuff like that. Now, Captain Marvel's tier 4. Remember how I said she could be a hybrid threat? Look at this tier 4. When you activate it, she gets a 15% heal for 10 seconds. But remember, everything gets multiplied. So that 15% heal turns into an 18% heal. And that 10 seconds becomes 13 seconds because you multiply 10 seconds by 1.3, right? So for 13 seconds, she's going to heal almost 20% of her HP. So over 13 seconds, she's healing over 230%. She heals more than her full HP bar more than twice. That's insane. That's insane healing, right? And if you can charge up, imagine, if you can charge up her tier 4 quickly, she'll turn into a machine. She'll turn into a healing machine. And if that's not all, she also has an energy attack increase that stacks every second that it's available. So it's a 30%, but remember, the buff gets multiplied by 1.2, so that 30% turns into 36%, and then it stacks up to 120%, but that's for 13 seconds. So after just 4 or 5 seconds, she's going to be at the max, and then that's another 8 seconds of 120% energy attack. That's crazy. Now, I don't know if the cap gets multiplied by 1.2. If the cap gets multiplied by 1.2 because it's a buff, then it'll like her cap will actually be closer to 150%. 150% energy attack on a tier 4 sounds pretty scary. So yeah, Captain Marvel could be an absolute monster. Then Nick Fury's tier 3 Saber Precision looks really cool, but how often are you going to see it? Exactly. You're not going to see it because you're barely going to use Nick Fury, which is disappointing. So I feel like The art, I feel like the skill animation team popped off, and then the marketing team and the balancing team just dropped the ball, right? They just dropped the ball. Why didn't they have an effect where when you use his tier 3, it gives the whole team a buff for like 10 seconds? Then you might have a meaningful decision to make whether you switch to Nick Fury or you don't switch to Nick Fury to pop the tier 3, right? Anywho, what do I know? I've just been playing this game for 10 years. Who knows? Whatever, 9 years. Korath and Minerva are getting their Transcendence Awakening. Yeah, it looks cool. It's green and yellow, but they're pretty much irrelevant characters. They'll be featured in the story mode next month, almost for sure. And that's basically all they're there for. We got a new legendary battle, which is actually really nice because you get a free 1-star Spectrum. So she's no longer a paywall. That's awesome. Again, I think these kinds of changes with Man-Thing, etc. are really, really welcome for the game. So you'll be able to build up Spectrum for free. If you never had her, if you missed her, whatever, you have some new... So there's basically sort of a new, pseudo-new character being added to the game for free-to-plays. Then we have the Extreme mode here. It's not the cheapest Rage CTP, but it is still a Rage CTP that you could get for just about 2,000 crystals. Now, I believe the quest requires you to have a tier 3 Captain Marvel to get a CTP of Rage, so that's something you can think about when you get the tier 3 selector for Black Friday or for the anniversary. You can do that, and then if you bought this legendary battle, you can get a CTP of Rage out of it. You can also get a 4-star Spectrum artifact. Hey, not bad. One of the better legendary battles, in my opinion, in terms of the rewards, but it's not the cheapest Rage. The cheapest Rage, I believe, is in the Spider-Man Far From Home, where you just have to get his type enhancement to 3, I think, or 5 or something like that, and you'll get a CTP of Rage there. But still, one of the cheapest. I still recommend buying legendary battles during crystal spending events. They never get discounted, so it's always going to cost you upfront 2,500 crystals, and then you get a 500 crystal discount. So it only ends up costing you 2,000. So 2,000 crystals for a 4-star artifact and a Rage CTP, that's one of the best deals. If this deal showed up in the shop with no battle, with no content, I would say buy it. So I gotta be hyped for this. I think this is awesome. It sucks how easy this content is because I think it's fun to play. I wish there was like a difficulty, like a super extreme, a legendary mode that was like 50 times harder, and there was some sort of like leaderboard, and then there was like rewards for the leaderboard every month, so you actually had a reason to play these, grind these out for a few days trying to get a high score. But hey, what do I know? I've just been playing this game for 9 years. And then we have, this is one of the best parts of the update, Alliance Battle improvements. So they're adding extra reward tiers to Alliance Battle. So I'm going to be releasing more Alliance Battle content to coincide with this, because I think now more than ever, it really matters that you try to push your Alliance Battle Extreme and Legend scores. So at 7 million for Alliance Battle Extreme and at 6 million for Alliance Battle Legend, you're going to be getting a collection token supply chest. So remember we talked about the collection tokens where there was no way to farm them and it was a purely paywall whale fiesta? Well, that is officially over. So yes, you will be able to farm these tokens, these collection tokens. You'll be able to farm them daily in Legendary Battle in Alliance Battle Legend and Alliance Battle Extreme. So that's really, really good. It's probably going to be a small amount of tokens. I'm not getting my hopes up for like, 50 tokens a day or something like that. They literally called the chest small. So yeah. But then there's other rewards as well. There's an Uru chest, which can drop an Odin's Blessing if you're in ABL, if you're in Alliance Battle Legend. There is another token supply chest, so you get even more tokens. And there's a medium one there at 10 million for ABL. And then you have a tier 3 chest and you have a tier 4 chest. So you can actually now farm tier 4 materials in ABL. Now, I want to caution you, 12 million is not easy to hit. Currently, I can hit 12 million with 2 characters. Luna on her days and Black Bolt on some days. Not all days for Black Bolt. But this is going to definitely encourage a lot of players to focus more on ABX and ABL. It's also going to make the value of a Rage and a Mighty Rage and a Brilliant Rage even higher, because that's how you get these scores more easily, right? Even if you're not a good player, technically speaking, mechanically speaking, you can still achieve some of these scores if you just overstack and overbuild your characters, right? Over leveling, so to speak. So yeah, I'm really happy to see these improvements. At this point, I think Alliance Battle Extreme and Alliance Battle Legend are perfect game modes. In my opinion, I think they're perfect. I think there's nothing wrong with them. I think the rotations and the rewards are excellent. And I think it's one of the game modes that other game modes should strive to become. So I'm happy to see them doing that. And I just hope that they continue to do this kind of stuff with other game modes. So yeah, they also, oh yeah, and they added a practice mode, which is awesome. So you can basically simulate any day of ABX or ABL. This makes it very easy to practice. This also makes it very easy for content creators. They don't have to wait for a day. You know, when an update comes out and you say, oh, how good is this character for ABX? And we say, oh, you got to wait like 4 or 5 days until their day comes around. You don't have to do that anymore. You can test them immediately. So this is really good in order to disseminate information to players faster about who's good and who's not good, etc. This is an excellent thing. This should have been in the game a long time ago. Sure, people are going to complain about that, but I'm just happy that it's here now. New artifacts for Captain Marvel and the gang. Captain Marvel's artifact increases her basic damage dealt to enemies with 50% HP or higher. So this is just like Moon Knight's and other ABX metas, ABL metas. This is very clearly a push to have her there. Nick Fury's artifact is a support artifact, but it's not very good. At 6 stars, at max rank, it's only giving 10% ignore dodge to hero allies, and then increasing basic damage dealt to boss types by 15%. It's not very good. It's not bad, but it's not like amazing either. So yeah, it is what it is. It's definitely whale bait. And then Spectrum's artifact, which you can get 4-star from the legendary battle. It gives her increased damage to villains, and it also allows her to ignore non-boss enemy damage decrease. So PvP effects there. Pretty nice. Minerva gets an artifact, and so does Korath. They're both pretty lame. It's just attack and ignore dodge, or attack and max HP. Yeah, some artifacts are just super uninspired because they're just using them as filler so that you don't always pull the good artifacts. We got a new future pass. No spoilers here, just some cool icons, but they're all related to the characters that we've seen. We have a uniform collection, so no Part 2, no Kree enemies or Super Skrull or anything like that. And then we have some other improvements, so some reward improvements. When you choose from a Tier 3 selector or a Transcended selector, when you choose a character that you already own at Tier 3 or Transcended, they would just refund you 512 biometrics. That was the rewards up until now. But as of this update, you're also going to get a pretty nice refund. It's not a refund, though. They're just giving you free Tier 3 materials. So you're going to get almost enough CCF to turn around in Tier 3 another character, which is quite nice. And you get almost enough Awakening and Mandalay to go ahead and transcend another character. So this basically almost gives you a full, it gives you about, I'd say about half of what you need to go ahead and transcend or Tier 3 another character. So that's quite nice. And then they've added new items. I'm not really going to talk too much about these items. We'll see them eventually. We'll cover them in shop sales and stuff like that. But they're basically like Giga Selectors. So these are Giga Selectors that work on native Tier 2 characters. These are Giga Selectors that work on native Tier 2 uniforms. Giga Selectors that work on the type enhancement of native characters. And then, crafted, selected comic card selector, premium comic card selector, but the card is already crafted. Sword selector, but the sword is already enhanced. And then this is the coolest one in my opinion, ISO 8 set bonus. So you can buy this and then put it on a character and it'll automatically roll the set bonus that you want, instead of you having to go in and roll it and spend like potentially 10-20 million gold. I think this is hilarious. I hope they sell this for like $5 or less, because I think a lot of whales would buy this just to, not have the headache of having to roll ISO 8 sets. But yeah, I just think that one's really funny. And then they did some changes here. Don't really matter. And then they did some game error fixes. The only thing I would complain about here with the game error fixes is that they haven't addressed the crashing, the very frequent crashing in the game. I got to see if this update fixes it or makes it worse or whatever, because it's really getting on my nerves. I think my game crashes at least twice a day now. It's really bad. It crashes all the time. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating. I'm actually surprised when it doesn't crash. So yeah, I think it's a really good update overall. I think there are some disappointments like Miss Marvel, but I think the reward changes and the focus on certain characters is really good. So I do think that they're going in the right direction. They're just slow. That's always been the situation for Marvel Future Fight. They know which direction to go in. They normally go in the right direction. They just sort of take their time, and some people get impatient. Anyways, hit me up in the comments down below. Let me know what you think. I'll have tons of guides for ABX and ABL coming out in the future. to coincide with these new rewards, because I think everyone should push for them. But you're all going to see my my subpar ABX skills in the meantime. So yeah, see you guys tonight on the stream. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.